call that Christianity? You know. And so I'm grateful that St. Francis, who was a Christian saint, he said, let's not do crusades, let's go and talk spirituality with them. And he founded the Franciscan order to be a bridge between the Sufis and the West. And also I respect Raymond Lull, who was a Christian in Spain, Mallorcan, who travelled in the Islamic world and said, let's learn from Sufism and not try and conquer them all, but engage with them intellectually and see where is the truth, you know. We can't meet Muhammad, he's not available apart from the heaven worlds, but we can talk to Sufis and saints. So anyway, he was a great one. And also René Guénon, the French sage, who went to Cairo. I think he would agree with what I'm saying here. He, although brought up a Roman Catholic in France, he became a Freemason. He explored every single occult thing you can. And then he ended up saying, no, you know what, I'm just going to surrender to the absolute. He became a Muslim and went to live in Cairo, just studying and teaching. And he's he became a Sufi. He's inspired lots of people in not just France, but throughout the world of esoteric Islam to this day. Okay, another one.
Christianity.
Okay, might as well. Good choice. Well, there's quite a few. There's quite a few formal Catholic saints. Saint Benedict of Aniane, Pope Gregory II. The two I'm going to focus on are an early Anglo-Saxon saint called Caedmon, Caedmon, who was from Northumbria. And he was a poet. And he wrote the first Christian poetry in Old English. And I'm a poet too, and I love poetry as a means of expressing the inexpressible. And Caedmon felt that the way to teach the wisdom of Christ is through poetry. And I'm proud to be the educational director for the Delphic Games, which is open to poets from all over the world to come. And we want to revive this idea that poetry is a way of expressing the beauty of life and the symmetry and magic of existence, you know. We should all be poets. So Caedmon, I honour him today. He's the patron saint of Christian poets. I also honour today a Protestant, because my column of Christians is Catholic and Protestant and Gnostic, you know, it's not limited, is a Protestant called Catherine Booth, who was the co-founder of the Salvation Army, which is a Protestant group that take religion quite seriously, and they help the unemployed, the downtrodden, the homeless in the street, living the street life in Britain, but also in other parts of the world. And William Booth, her husband, I think it was, or was it her father? Always get muddled up. He set it up like a sort of military order. He was a general. And the people that became Salvation Army people took it seriously, and they had to like make oaths and, you know, not do naughty stuff. And they're still on the streets to this day, helping the poor, the downtrodden, drug addicts, people that have lost the way, giving them light. And I've known a few Salvation Army people. They're good people. Yeah, and Catherine was very instrumental in that as a woman, spiritual leader. Right, another one, next one.
Paganism?
Paganism, okay. Yes. Well, today we have Euripides, the Greek Athenian playwright from Athens, and at the very dawn of theatre. Because what's often not realised is that theatre began in Athens as the worship of Dionysus. There was a great festival to Dionysus every year, and the Athenians had this idea, why not put on a little play to honour the god? because Dionysus was the god who brings ecstasy to us mortals, beauty, music, dance, and poetry. If you're touched by Dionysus, you become ecstatic, and therefore culture flows out of you. And so theatre began as celebrations at the festival of Dionysus. And Euripides was one of the great playwrights. We don't have that much of his work, a lot of it didn't survive. But he did compete, I believe, in the Delphic Games. Because if you were a really good playwright, you wanted to get your work performed at Delphi, in the Temple of Apollo. It was every 4 years. And he wrote tragedies. Other playwrights like Aristophanes wrote comedies. And this whole idea of a distinction between tragedy and comedy was a Greek thing. Aristotle, he invented literary criticism. He wrote about the difference between tragedy and comedy and what should be the ideal, I think Euripides would say that the tragedies come in two forms. Those that are caused by the gods as a teaching lesson. So, like, look at the life of Hitler, it could have gone either way. He felt very deeply about helping Germany. He felt World War I had been a disaster. He wanted to help the people. He loved life. He loved Britain. Ironically, he went to Liverpool. He married. Well, in the end, he married his girlfriend, who had been brought up by English nuns. Old Hitler. Eva Brun was raised by English nuns, right? So he was an Anglophile, right? But the trouble was Hitler wasn't an intellectual. He was tormented. He didn't like Stalinism. He hated extreme communism, and he had this semi-education. He'd never been to university. He never learned the humanities, and he got too much power too early and manipulated it. And he was like a military chap, and then this terrible cataclysmic war started, which he initiated by invading Poland, contra Putin's nonsense. And of course he thought he was right to do it, but nobody's right to unleash that level of violence on another nation, in my opinion. That was the tragedy of Hitler. He thought, and it's the tragedy of all these kind of people, is they think that by doing a little bit of violence now, quick, we'll win, then everyone will be happy. Well, they weren't. The Poles have never forgiven the Nazis, and I've been around Auschwitz, I know why. Auschwitz was first a Polish officers' killing field, before it was a Jewish killing field, because a lot of the officers were Jewish, and so they said, well, we'll kill them all here, And that was all a tragedy. Euripides would say that's the gods had it in for him, and the fact that he then had to do the bombing of England and the Blitz, and that was a tragedy too, because he actually didn't want to. That's why he let Dunkirk happen. He let the English army escape, because secretly he loved England. But the tragedy was that he had to try and destroy it. So Euripides could write a brilliant play about all that, and he'd say the gods have tormented his mind. He's gone crazy. Euripides would write a tragedy about Putin, the same thing, and that's what causes tragedy. So there's the divine one, when a god sends it as a teaching lesson for humanity. Hopefully we learned. I hoped we'd have learned from the Hitler tragedy not to do it again. I was brought up to work for peace, and never again. That's why I'm so appalled that Putin, a Russian leader, is now praising Hitler as doing the right thing, in public at interviews. The man is mad. We have a Euripides situation. So I think what the Greeks did by inventing tragedy is they tried to teach humanity to learn from the lessons. And what Aristotle explained is that the point of watching a tragedy on the stage is the catharsis it causes to the audience. It's so horrific. It purifies you. And that's the Greek word catharsis. that you will never do that. So if we watch the horrors of Auschwitz or something, we say, I'm never going to do that, ever. You know, or you watch the horrors of the German invasion of Poland, which was horrific. No, I'm never going to participate in that level of violence. That's catharsis. And that's what the Greeks were doing. And that's what Dionysus was saying, you know. There is, on the Dionysus front, there's a great book called The Key to Immortality by Brian Murarescu, who says that there's a link between the Dionysus rituals and mysteries and the later Christian ones. And there's a direct lineage link. It's possible. Okay, that's Euripides, the pagan. What's another one?
Hinduism.
Hinduism.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay, so we have today Bharadvaja, who was a sage of ancient India, a grammarian of Sanskrit. So he studied Sanskrit language in detail to find the etymology, the meaning of words. And he was later quoted by Panini, whose work has come down. We don't have Bharadvaja, sadly. But I think he would have been very much into what I call the Kabbalah runes, the meaning of sound and its magical effects, because that's the mantric quality of sound that Sanskrit understands. He would have known more about that. Okay, another one. Only a couple more.
I'm out of service now. I'm sorry.
Sorry?
I'm out of service now.
Okay. I'm going to do the, let me choose one, for the esoteric column, because neither of you mentioned that, okay? And today we have William Backhouse, who was an alchemist. He lived from 1593 to 1662. He's not written about in any history books. I discovered him through my researches in London. And he was a patron to Elias Ashmole. Elias Ashmole gave his name to the Ashmolean Museum at the University of Oxford. He was a very learned man, old Ashmole. If you've not been to Oxford to the Ashmolean, go, it's amazing. And this chap, William Backhouse, was his sort of patron and was an esoteric alchemist, a Rosicrucian, and totally unknown. He lived in seclusion in the countryside, a place called Swallowfield. People would come and visit. To me, that's a proper sage. They're not after glory and fame, but they do their quiet teaching, and they get on with the work. Okay, that's William. And lastly, can we do the Freemason? Is that okay? Because your mother's descended from, well-known, an important Freemason from Scottish roots, right? In honour of that, let's do our Freemason to finish. And this is Sir Richard Burton, 1821 to 1890, a Victorian traveller. Larger-than-life guy, polymath, a linguist. He spoke Arabic, Persian, Latin, Greek. He was an Oxford graduate. And he was a world traveller. He went all over Persia and the Middle East. He was the first Englishman that we know of to go to Mecca. He went as a Muslim. He was like me, said, I'm everything. So he put Muslim clothes on and went on pilgrimage and wrote about it. His wife was a Roman Catholic and thought his work was a bit odd. But he travelled, it was the days of the British Empire, so he travelled all over India. And he was particularly interested in esoteric writings on Tantra. He translated, the Kama Sutra into English for the first time, which is the Hindu sort of text about esoteric sexuality. He was a real scholar and a Freemason as well. So we don't see the likes of people like him anymore, sadly. Great man. Okay, and then finally, last one. I can't leave this guy out. It's his day. This is for culture and the arts, right? It's William Blake.
Oh,
the poet,
beautiful.
right? Who's buried in Bunhill Fields in London. I've been to the grave. He was a poet and a painter. He was baptised at St James's Church in London, which I've been to many times. I used to know the vicar there, and I was baptised indirectly through St James's Church in London. And William Blake has always meant a lot to me as a poet. He was a Druid. We honour him as a wisdom elder. And he was from that romantic period of poetry. He lived from 1757 to 1827. Yes, a great esoteric Christian poet and painter, because he illustrated his paintings with his poems with painting. Okay, so that's every day I like to celebrate these sages, and those are our bunch from tomorrow. I don't like to play like who's the best saint of the day, because they're all, to me, they're all beautiful and amazing and different, and we should complement each other. So that's the reason for doing the periodic table, is to bring out the best of all the traditions in harmony. It's not a contest, it's a cooperation we're supposed to be doing on the planet. And let's learn about each other's saints. Let's learn about each other's wisdom keepers. I don't think we would then be dropping bombs on each other. We'd be giving each other's flowers and presents and books and, enjoying life. Because they're all different, but they're all amazing. Okay, I think I'll stop there, unless any questions, final questions, comments.
Well, I was seeing a narrative unfold, and I think it stemmed from the light and dark having a conflict.
Yeah.
But then there's a middle path. If you introduce a third, which is if you take it to us and we have a choice, which wolf you feed. We are the ones that can navigate that dance, and it becomes our architecture, what we're building, what we're creating in this manifest existence. What do we want to sculpt into new birth, into reality? And then, but then it being fire and earth, and you said, oh, if only they could, but that is creation. The earth is fed by the fire of the sun, that is creation itself. So that is the birthing possibility that can come when everyone is dancing to their own, music, and how we all can collaborate collectively. If we stay true to our own architecture, what are we trying to build, and how are we going to do that with our hearts and our minds and our full focus, and alignment with everything we are. So yes, that was my observations. I could go deeper. Oh yes, the method. So the method, what method do we use? So bringing it into how we shape and how we tune in to that higher self, and how we bring that into our being. And I loved what you said about the pyramids, because that literally is it. You're kind of building like a star that can kind of come down to you in your heart chakra, and it's about how you connect to that sacred source, and what method do you use to tune into that divinity within you, so yes. Yeah.
Which is the flag of Israel, the two pyramid shapes that intersect at the heart, which is this Hindu symbol as well.
Indeed, that's how I see it. It's how that's the divinity.
Absolutely, and I'm sure René Guénon and all the others we've talked about would say, let's study with eternal wisdom instead of killing each other. Let's teach each other, and learn from each other and share. So I wish the whole world would be doing philosophy more than killing. But, if you've enjoyed this talk, spread the word. And the Delphic Games is behind us, the logo. If you want to get involved with the Delphic Games, contact me. in your capacity as an artist or poet or painter or musician or dancer, or if you're the new Euripides on the block, please get in touch and we'd like to hear from you. Okay? And let's change the world through art and through wisdom, through philosophy. Okay, thank you.
Beautiful, thank you.